It was a crime that can only be described as bizarre. A pizza delivery man walked into a bank in broad daylight with a bomb strapped around his neck, demanding money. Had he acted alone, or was he actually a victim of a bigger crime? That crime is now the subject of a new Netflix series that explores a complicated plot that seems too strange, too twisted to be true, but it is. Watch. It was a bank heist in Erie, Pennsylvania that captured the attention of the nation.
Erie has its share, for being a small town, of kind of bizarre events. We've had a number of things happen over the years, but there is nothing that was just so sincerely bizarre as this case.
On August 28, 2003, a 46-year-old pizza delivery man named Brian Wells walked into a bank with a gun shaped like a cane and a homemade bomb strapped around his neck. He gave the tellers a note demanding $250,000.
It's a bank robbery, but it's a scavenger hunt. You had to guess, shirt on, oh, guess what this is.
Wells escaped with almost $9,000 in cash, but was soon caught by Pennsylvania state troopers. He claimed he'd been ordered to rob the bank and needed help.
He couldn't describe the black individuals that he claimed put the bomb around his neck. At that time, I started hearing a beat. His whole demeanor changed. And I think it's at that time that he realized that it is a real bomb.
Just 3 minutes before the bomb squad arrived, the bomb exploded, killing Wells. Officials worked to piece together the fragments of the story, investigating whether Wells acted alone or was a pawn in a larger plot. Now, nearly 15 years later, a new Netflix series, Evil Genius, explores how one mysterious woman, Marjorie Deal Armstrong, may have masterminded the entire crime.
Marjorie was unique. It still reminds me of Silence of the Lambs, where Clarice Starling's walking down this dark, dingy hallway to interview Hannibal Lecter. And we walk in, Lieutenant brings her in, and she sits down, and I'm looking right at her, and I thought, oh my goodness.
The real story behind the bank heist turned out to be stranger than fiction. Here with us this morning are the two filmmakers behind the series, Trey Borzillieri and Barbara Schroeder. Scott Bremner, one of the reporters who covered this entire story, is also with us this morning. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This thing has set Netflix on fire. Evil Genius. Everybody said, have you seen Evil Genius? Have you seen? It's 4 hours of your time. It's 4 parts. And they are riveting. And the thing that's so riveting about it is it's true. I mean, it's all the real footage, the real people, and the incredible interviews with this woman, Marjorie. Yeah. I remember this story.
Right.
And do you guys remember this story? Where this guy was this pizza delivery man, and you didn't know whether he was the real bank robber, like he was wanting to do it, or whether he was a victim of somebody else. The series walks us through the beginnings of suspecting him. Like, do we believe this story that Brian Wells wasn't in on it? And then it leads us to Marjorie after this guy named William Rothstein calls the police.
Right.
And tells the police what?
For yet another crime. He calls the police about a frozen body. So that's how complicated this story is. It goes
a frozen body, hello?
Yeah, like it has everything in it. And when Trey first brought the story to me, I was so impressed because he's like a citizen journalist. And I'm a seasoned journalist. And he said, hey, I've got this story. And I'm like, I remember that story. It was about a guy with a collar bomb, whatever happened. And he started telling me, and every moment was like, wait, what?
Yes.
Yeah, and by coincidence, I was in Buffalo, New York, which is just east of Erie on that day, August 28th, 2003. And in the evening news, there was a report that said a bank robber had robbed a bank with a live bomb locked to him. And it had detonated in the process. And I thought, wow, that man must have been so desperate to rob a bank in that fashion. And soon enough, it trickled out that there was evidence at the scene that implicated the fact that he was forced to do it. There was, the possibility that he was forced.
Because who that's robbing a bank straps a bomb around themselves?
Right. Yeah, it's like, what kind of desperate, measures are bank robbers going to these days? Mm-hmm. So that was the beginning of the mystery. And then the call from Rothstein a month later, and you're just like, oh, my God.
So all this, the police are looking at Brian Wells, the guy who was killed by the bomb. Like, why would he do it? Who else would have put him up to it? He claimed before he died that it was 3 black men had kidnapped him, put the bomb on him. And so they couldn't find the alleged 3 men. So they were really looking at him. And then this guy, Bill Rothstein, calls about a dead body in a freezer.
And are those cases connected or not? And that was kind of our journey. Like, how did investigators find out if the cases were connected or not? Yeah. And then Trey.
And then the case went cold for a very long time, and it was very hard to get any information from anybody in Erie at the time.
Because they weren't able to link dead body in the freezer to anything having to do with Brian Wells, the guy who got killed with the bomber.
But it seemed like they should be linked because the dead body in the freezer was right next to the tower site where the pizza guy made his last, Brian Wells made his last delivery. So
a lot of people were turning up mysteriously dead in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And there was this question about this woman, Marjorie. Oh, Marjorie, who has a long history of boyfriends not living.
A string of boyfriends.
We're going to pick it up with Marjorie right after the break. Don't go away. And we're back now with more on the hit Netflix documentary, Evil Genius. If you haven't seen it, do so soon. It investigates the crazy true story of the 2003 pizza bomber case. With me now are the two co-directors, Trey Borzillieri and Barbara Schroeder. And Scott Bremner is a reporter who covered the entire case with us. He's here with us as well. Scott, let me just ask you, because Erie, Pennsylvania is not exactly known for its epic murder sprees.
Mostly for having 5 feet of snow over Christmas.
Exactly. Yeah. So what was the reaction in the town when they knew that poor Brian had been killed by a bomb, and yet it was clear the police were wondering who else it might have been involved?
Yeah, it was a long process because it started out as an amazing event, and then it just got weirder and weirder. And every time something was released, police served a search warrant, or we found out a little bit more information. We started talking about some of these things. The cane gun was really loaded. It was working.
The cane gun that he robbed the bank with.
Yeah. Every single piece of fact that came out was stranger and stranger, and people just kept shaking their heads and said, how could this happen here? But when you learn the whole story, I mean, how could this happen anywhere?
Well, and the thing is, the guy calls and says there's a dead body in the freezer. That's Bill, right? Bill.
Yes.
Bill Rothstein. Yeah. And the dead body turns up to be this gal Marjorie's boyfriend.
Right.
And then you do a little digging into Marjorie, and it turns out Marjorie's got a lot of dead ex-boyfriends. A lot of dead.
She's very intelligent, very brilliant. She's mentally disabled. She would tell you, hey, I'm bipolar, but feel sorry for me. There was a great line in a Pop Sugar writer said that Marjorie Dale Armstrong is revoltingly magnetic. And Trey has endured years of talking to her to try to get to the truth about her level of involvement. Was she or was she not the masterminder? Was it this Bill Rothstein guy?
Who had called the police to say, there's a dead body in the freezer. Marjorie made me move it. And now you're trying to figure out, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Who's the villain, Marjorie or Bill or both? Or does this have anything to do with Brian Wells, the so-called pizza bomber?
Exactly. And so eventually Bill Rothstein actually dies. And so from my perspective, I was like, it was very hard to get information on this case. And Marjorie was one of the only people alive at the time. So
how many times did you talk to her?
Maybe 500 to 1,000 times.
Over the course of 10 years?
Yeah.
Just to get to the truth. And she would verbally abuse him. She would say, you better not report that because I'm going to sue your effing balls off. I mean, what he went through to get to the truth was amazing.
Balls, that's fine. From what So you're trying to figure it out. Now, I mean, when you're talking to her, what was your impression of her? Are you thinking this is a cold, calculated killer?
Yeah. And so I was very uncomfortable with it. I was, from the start, but I was willing to do it, for the story and to get truth in this case. And so she was just bludgeoning. She was super manipulative, very tough, but we had a real relationship.
Wait, you're talking to her from prison?
She's in prison.
And at this point, you know for a fact that she's killed 2 men. That's admitted. It turns out she killed an earlier boyfriend back in '83, and she was acquitted. She admitted that she murdered him, but she said it was self-defense. She claimed battered woman syndrome, and the jury let her off. Then she admitted that she killed this boyfriend who was in the freezer, but she kind of claimed similar circumstances. This time she went away. So now you're talking to her in prison, trying to figure out whether she also killed Brian Wells with the bomb around the neck.
Yes. So, I mean, it was intense, very intense, and she's very impulsive. So she would act out or behave in manners that are detrimental to her and her position. But she would do it because she was just so impulsive in her behavior.
Trey also had a relationship with another woman that is in episode 4, it's a tease, who was an elusive eyewitness. And he was able, the same skills that he used with Marjorie to get her to talk, he was able to talk to this person who she had talked to the FBI and then she lawyered up and shut up. And then she went away for a long time. And Trey stayed in touch with her. And it was because of his long-term relationships with these people that he was able to get some information. I mean, technically it's a closed FBI major case, but there are still a lot of questions remaining.
This is the, we won't reveal it, but this is the lady of the evening?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so this is actually really important because one of the questions, the documentary will take you through what they think happened and who exactly they think was responsible for that moment with the bomb on the chest and the bank robbery. But it reveals new information about Brian Wells himself and what role he did or did not, the guy who was killed with the bomb, what role he did or did not have in this crime that played out so shockingly on national television. Highly recommend. It's 4 hours of your time. You can bust it out in a binge watch or you can space it out over the course of a week. Well done to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
bet.
Thank you very much.
Evil Genius, that's the name, is streaming right now on Netflix, and we'll be right back.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.